I'm from Mumbai, and if I want to come here, right, inspired by you, if I want to become a developer here, right, how do I go about it? Can I even buy land here to become a developer? What would be my modus operandi?
You can. You see, the unfortunate part is land holdings in Himachal are very small. So I don't think the land holding is more than an acre or acre and a half, or as an average. Plus, the land in which I'm under possession is actually owned by my neighbor. My neighbor's land is owned by somebody else. So there's a lot of cross holdings. It's called a mushtarka khata out here. So it's very difficult to take that web out. What I'm saying is very difficult to get clean land. B, 70% of the land in Himachal is owned by the government. So you're left with 30%. Of 30%, I would say only 1% is in places where you can develop, which is close to Simla.
So only 1% is habitable.
Close to Simla, close to Dharamsala, close to Solan. Only 1%. Of that 1%, I think only 1% is available. The people in Himachal don't like selling their land. They're like, this is our Devbhumi, this is our mother, we won't sell it. No matter, if there's any food in the house or not. So people are very attached to land. It's very difficult to get land. But anyway, if somebody does get the land, then he has to go to the government and say, listen, I have an agreement to sell with these people. Here's my agreement. Kindly give me permission under Section 118 of the Land and Tenancy Act. Himachal is one of the few states in India where you just can't walk in and buy land and do anything you feel like, or even buy a home. You got to take permission from the government. Then the government looks at you, looks at your projects, your financials, etc., and says, okay, fine, I'm going to give you the Section 118 permission. Now you can go ahead and propose to the various departments that you want to develop. So then you go to the Town and Country Planning Department. After that, everything remains the same, like what I had mentioned to you earlier. You get all those 7-8 permissions and so on and so forth, and then you develop.
So if I'm interested in a land, right? Say this is the land I'm interested in. Do I need to make plans on what I intend to do on the land before I can even think of acquiring it?
Yes. So you would acquire 10, 20 acres or whatever it is, and then you would tell the government that, listen, I want to make a hotel out here. I want to make a hotel with 100 homes or whatever it is. So that basic plan, your concept, your vision has to go to the government for them to give you an in-principle approval.
Understood. So I can't just buy land for the heck of it here. I need to do something on it as an outsider.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, interesting.
For sure.
So no land banking.
No. You see, I used to actually first wonder when I was younger, what is this 118 all about? It's a section where you can, where you have to take permission. So in fact, nobody can even buy an apartment here without the government permission, outside municipal limits. And I think it's a phenomenal being selfish as a Himachali, because if this law didn't exist, Himachal would have been part of, culturally, part of UP, Punjab, Haryana. Right? We only maintained our culture and that sanctity just because we have had this protectionist kind of a policy. It's a very old way of thinking, but that's the only reason we protected this beautiful state.
Right. Can you touch upon this 118 section? What exactly does it entail? What is it exactly?
So this started, I think, when Himachal became Himachal from Greater Punjab. I think to protect the Himachalis, because they were very innocent people. They didn't have the affluence that the people in the plains had, and weren't that wily as well. To protect the Himachalis, this law came about that anybody who wants to buy land in Himachal, if he is not a Himachali agriculturist, he has to take permission from the revenue department. And finally, it goes up to the top level for every single permission. So they have to get permission, whether you're a developer or you're an individual and you want to buy a home. Home could be a villa, home could be a cottage, home could be an apartment. You've got to take permission from the government to be able to buy that. And the way you do that is you tell the government, listen, I'm an Indian, I love Himachal, I want to live out here. Please allow me to live out here.
Yeah. Understood. Now, if I were to, speaking of living out here, if I were to buy an apartment here, right? How would I buy an apartment here? Like how can a non-Himachali buy an apartment in Himachal? Is it the same process, or will developers help me get that permission? How will that work out? Assuming, let's say I were to buy an apartment in Orama Valley.
Well, first of all, you got to be RERA approved, right? If you are RERA approved, even if you're RERA approved, you still go to the government. We obviously help you because if you're coming from Bombay, you don't know all those 20 steps you got to take and you can't follow up with every department. But you apply to the government and say, listen, this is a project, Rama Valley is RERA approved, this is the Jamabandis, this is this is my passport, so on and so forth, and I'm buying an apartment out here, the layout, etc., the normal stuff. And you basically put it into the Deputy Commissioner's office. It goes from a level of the Kanugo to the level of the District Revenue Officer, to the additional DM, to the DC, to the Secretariat, and then to the government. It's a process, and I'm fine with the process, because although it's lengthy, but it makes sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are ticked.
Now, Manav, you guys are the biggest developers in Himachal Pradesh, right? You are the biggest here, right? Beautiful township, sizable, right? But why are there not other developers of this scale in Himachal? I think there are very, very, very few developers in Himachal Pradesh. Why is that?
See, it's not easy to make a developer, besides being passionate, needs to make money. Now, a developer sitting in Delhi, a large developer, will do a project worth 3,000-4,000 crores and get it over and dusted with in 5 years, right? In Himachal, you can't do it. The terrain is very tough. To build is very tough. To come out here is very tough. To find good people to work for you is very tough. To find labor is very tough. Getting material is very tough. Government permissions are very tough. So, if I was a developer who just landed up in India from somewhere, I would see where can I get the best bang for my buck.
In the fastest way possible.
Yeah, because I'm a developer, I need to make money, right? And Himachal is not the easiest place to make that quick money. It takes 10, 20 years to build that. Where we are sitting right now, this was nothing. This was just what we call ghasni, which is grasslands.
And when do you start this?
About 15 years ago.
And when you started, what was the public response? What did people... And how do you think of doing this 15 years ago? Did people call you crazy?
Yeah. So, a lot of my friends, most of my friends are very successful, far more than me. And if I asked 100 people I'm doing this, 100 told me not to do it. There's not one human being who told me to do this.
So encouraging.
Yeah. So, I think it's a bit of that, craziness streak. I don't know what it was.
Passion.
I think it's passion and it's my love for Himachal.
And I can see that. I can genuinely see that. I was like, we've been talking, right? And I can see that passion, this almost passion-led, obsessive, compulsive disorder. I'm saying it in the nicest way possible, right? It's like this good OCD that I see, that you're so passionate about not just your own project, but the entire state. And I think inherently that would have been one of the reasons you wanted to develop it. Just take the reins in your own hand. Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I consider myself a Himachali, and I'm a Himachali agriculturist. We've been raised out here. My family's been here since 1940. So I feel very, very passionate about this state, and I thought, let me do something good for this state in a nice way. I don't want to build a cluster of homes and unorganized construction. So despite all the advice that I got, I don't know, there's something that in me told me, listen, you just have to do this. And fortunately, I wasn't backed up by any debt. All the money I put in was my money. So end of the day, I always knew that if it didn't work out, I'll just shut the doors, pay everybody 2 months of salaries, and still enjoy myself, having a coffee under a tree. So I had no downside that way. There was a downside, but it wasn't that I'm going to be bankrupt or anything like that. So given that I had that benefit of no financial burden on me and this crazy passion about doing something for Himachal, but the very fact that this would also allow me to spend more time in Himachal, I think these just three things just drove me into doing whatever I did, and I did it blindly. Once I was in a close group with Anil Agarwal of Vedanta, And somebody said, listen, but all these big boys, they're targeting you. He said, really? I have no clue. So he said, no, we've heard that, this big industrial house, this industrial house, there's a big boys club in Bombay, and, you're not a very, popular guy there. He said, I have no clue. So sometimes he said, ignorance is bliss. I had no clue, so I just carry on. So I myself had, despite the 100 people telling me that don't do it, I was completely ignorant of the risks. And I was just focusing on the positive. I wasn't focusing on what would go wrong. I was just dead sure I'm going to do it.
I'm so glad we did this. Manav, thank you so much for your time, for taking out time from your schedule and, having us over and, giving us an absolute masterclass on Himachal, real estate. And we've never actually done a podcast in such a beautiful setting. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you very much. This is my first podcast, and I hope all my podcasts are out in the open and not in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you'll make sure of that.
I will.
And also, before we, part ways, I want you to, walk me around and just show me the beautiful expanse of this entire region.
It'll be a pleasure.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mayank.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.